and welcome back to Micro Teaching. And today we're looking at medicine and we're looking at the contributions of the ancient Greeks. We've got 3 focus questions we're looking at today. Have a look now. Number 1, we want to explain why the ancient Greeks made progress in medicine. Number 2, we want to describe and explain Hippocrates' discoveries. And number 3, we want to explain the significance of ancient Greek ideas. Why were they important? Let's start with our first focus question. Some ancient Greeks were very rich because there were poor people, slaves and traders below them doing all the dirty business of work. This freed up time for very rich people, and they spent that time lying around, observing the natural world and coming up with new ideas. One of these rich Greeks was called Hippocrates, and he came to be known as the father of medicine for the reasons that we are about to look at now. Hippocrates' first idea was clinical observation, diagnosis, prognosis. This meant observing a patient when they were ill, writing down their symptoms so you could say what disease they had, this is called diagnosis, and thirdly, making a prediction about what would happen to that person with that disease. That was his first idea. And it was important because it allowed people to see that diseases had a natural cause. While Hippocrates was observing his patients, he also noticed that when people were ill, they tended to have one of 4 fluids coming out of their body. There's no nice way to say this, so I'm just going to say it how it is. Those 4 fluids were phlegm, vomit, blood, and black bile. We would call that diarrhea. Hippocrates came to believe that what caused people to be ill was an imbalance in those humours. If you had too much of one or not enough of the other, you would become ill. Hippocrates linked his ideas to the seasons. He said that in winter there was too much water around, which meant you would have phlegm in your body, which was why you had a runny nose. My favourite example of this concerns the autumn, because in ancient Greece, people often had diarrhea in the autumn because of all the ripe fruit they were eating. Hippocrates linked this to black bile and said people were developing diarrhea during the autumn because they had too much of this humour. This idea is clearly wrong, but it is a step forward because it is one of the first developed natural ideas. And this is important because before this point, people were blaming all unexplainable diseases on gods, which meant there was nothing you could do about it if you were ill. This leads to our major contribution here. Hippocrates taught that if you wanted to stay healthy, you had to keep your humours in balance. And that meant leading a balanced lifestyle. It meant sleeping, but not too much. It meant exercise, but not too much. It meant eating, but not too much, and eating a range of foods. These are sensible ideas. If you do these things, you are likely to stay well. And so even though the idea was wrong, it actually had a benefit to people's health. Now, Hippocrates' ideas came to be adopted by this man here, Galen. Galen was a doctor who was Greek but lived in the Roman Empire, which came after the Greek Empire. Galen wrote a large number of books and included Hippocrates' ideas in those books. One of the things that Galen did was dissected human bodies, and as he was doing this, he was so amazed by what he found, he came up with this quote, which also went into his books. And the quote is that the human body is perfect and must have been designed by God. The Roman Empire collapses, and stepping into the power vacuum in Europe becomes the Christian Church. The Christian Church rediscovers Galen's work and find that he said this. The church loves this because it fits in with their beliefs that God is perfect and creates perfect things. And they come to teach that Galen was divinely inspired, which means that Galen's message came directly from God. So the church also taught that if you questioned Galen, it meant you were questioning the church, which meant you were questioning God, which meant you would go to hell. And nobody wanted that. So, because of Galen including Hippocrates' ideas in his books, and the church's adaptation or adoption of Galen's work, Hippocrates seems to piggyback through 2,000 years of history, with his ideas continuing to be used as the basis for healthcare right up until the Renaissance. Review the focus questions now. Number 1, can you explain why the ancient Greeks made progress in medicine? That's this part of the diagram here. Can you describe and explain Hippocrates' discoveries? There's 2 to do. This one here, and this one here. And last of all, can you explain the significance of Greek ideas? And that means, can you explain why they stayed so important for so long? And that's all of this here. Thank you very much for listening. More videos to follow.